I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
If you have ever watched Pawn Stars, then you already know that some of their deals can seem a bit sketchy. Pawn Stars follows the deals made at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop featured on the History Channel. Everyone on Pawn Stars is trying to make a quick buck, customers to the staff. But what happens when that quick buck turns into a terrible deal? The Pawn Stars are known for swapping customers' cherished possessions for cash, but sometimes it seems like they might be taking advantage of a customer's inexperience. So here are 12 times that Pawn Stars scammed their own customers. Number 12, White Eagle Medallion. An avid yard sale enthusiast found a medallion at a sale and paid just 75 cents for it. Curious as to what the medal was actually worth, he took it to the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop featured on the television show Pawn Stars. When Rick laid eyes on it, he realized it could be worth much more. Rick enlisted his resident expert Craig to take a look at the medal. Craig confirmed that Rick's instinct was right, and the medal actually dated back to the Tsarist occupation of Poland. Rick offered the seller $6,000 for the artifact, and in the end, eventually sold the medal for $30,000. Number 11, 1890s 45 Colt Peacemaker. The first ever Colt 45 Peacemaker, manufactured in 1873, was bought at an auction in 1987 for $242,000. Gold and Silver Pawn and another Colt 45 Peacemaker, manufactured much later, is brought in. The owner, Brian, bought the gun for just $25. After some back and forth, Brian and Rick came to the price tag of $3,000. Brian took the deal and ran. After closer inspection, Sean, the weapons expert, tells Rick the gun is worth well over $5,000. Since Brian admitted that he only spent $25 on this gun, we can't feel too bad for the low offer that he received. Number 10. Edward Curtis Photographs. A woman came to the pawn shop with 4 photographs she claimed to be taken by famous photographer Edward Curtis. The process of making these photographs involved using copper plates and gelatin paper. You would create the prints by using an etching process. The woman really had no idea what she had in her hands, as she only asked for $50 for the entire collection. The prints ended up being worth much more than that. After doing some research, Rick realized the prints were worth around $20,000. Somewhere, you can hear the sound of the seller kicking herself. Number 9, 1984 Chris Craft boat. In the early years of Pawn Stars, Corey was tempted to buy a 1984 Chris Craft boat with a $16,500 price tag without having an expert check it out first. Gambles like this one have been known to come back to haunt the team. Rick and the old man weren't very happy with Corey's purchase and told him in no uncertain terms that his gamble was a stupid one. Later, it turned out that by putting just $4,000 of work into restoring the boat, it would be worth roughly $30,000. Now, one person might not be too happy with this new revelation, but the original seller of the boat, Dino, had purchased the boat just 6 months before for $25,000. He thought the boat needed more work than he could afford and was hoping to get no less than $20,000 for it. If he had just held on to it and saved a bit of money to put in, he could have had a much bigger payday. Number 8. 1715 Spanish Gold Fleet Coin. In 1715, a Spanish fleet left Cuba on its way to Spain with gold and silver on board. It was unexpectedly hit by a hurricane and sunk just off the coast of Florida. Seller Jody was lucky enough to come into possession of one of the gold coins from that shipwreck. She entered the shop and was looking for $2,000. The team didn't believe that the gold coin was authentic given how good of a condition it was in, but after having their expert confirm it potentially being worth $18,000. Not letting this information on to their customer, Rick offered her $11,000 for it. Jody happily took the money even though she could have potentially made a few more thousand. Number 7. Hotchkiss Cannon. Did you know that there's such a thing as field artillery collectors? Yep, it's true, and a customer named Chuck happens to be one. As he rolled in his 1890 Hotchkiss Cannon over to the Pawn Stars, he was hoping to leave with some serious dough. The Hotchkiss Cannon was one of the powerful weapons of the 19th century. When Rick's weapons expert told him that he could pay $40,000 for it and still make money on that deal, it looked like Chuck had it made in the shade. But poor Chuck didn't know when to keep his mouth shut. He admitted to Rick that he had only expected $30,000, to which Rick jumped at the chance to save another $10,000. They agreed to $30,000 as long as the cannon still fired. Number 6. Coin collection. In 2013, a large coin collection was stolen from David Walters by his niece, Jennifer Beckman. Jennifer ended up walking through the doors of the gold and silver pawn shop and making a deal with the guys for just $12,375 over the course of 3 different visits. David has filed a complaint for the missing coin collection, which he believed they were worth over $50,000, and investigators started checking local pawn shops, who must keep records of all their sales. The investigators were too late when they finally checked in with the Pawn Stars. The coin collection had already been melted down. In most cases, pawn shops are required by law to keep items for a minimum of 30 to 90 days in case the seller returns. Coins, unfortunately, well, they're not covered under that law. Number 5. 1962 Lincoln Continental. In another early episode of the show, Rick and the Old Man were presented with a restored 1962 Lincoln Continental by seller Devin. While Devin had done a bunch of restoration work to the car, he felt that he had put enough time and money into it and was looking to unload. Devin was hoping to get around $14,000 for the car, but one look at the interior, which was falling apart, and the team offered him $9,500. When the car first hit the market in 1962, it cost $10,000, $500 less than what Rick and the Old Man paid in 2019. The team spent around $15,000 to completely restore the vehicle, and once everything was said and done, the car was worth between $30,000 to $35,000. Number 4. Samurai Sword. The following deal was, well, just downright wrong. Seller David walked in the shop. He said he was a lawyer and that he had acquired a 15th century samurai sword when a client used it as collateral and failed to come back to claim it. In the back room, Corey admitted to seeing similar swords sell for thousands of dollars. Despite this confession, Corey started his bidding at $800. The seller actually thought that $800 was an amazing deal and probably would have stopped right there. However, he was able to haggle up to $1,500. Later, an expert would determine the actual worth to be around $5,000 to $6,000 in its current state. If Corey decided to do around $4,000 worth of work to the sword, he could bring in as much as $15,000 for it. In the end, the team high-fived the super shady deal. Number 3. Book from Isaac Newton's library. Imagine believing you own a 450-year-old book that you suspect belonged to Sir Isaac Newton himself. Now imagine you walk into Gold and Silver Pawn looking for a great payout. A customer named Bob in Season 3 entered the pawn shop with a century-old book of alchemy. Bob's suspicions were correct as they called in their expert Greg to confirm the book did in fact belong to Sir Isaac Newton. Although the cover of the book had been restored sometime in the 1700s, it's still quite a unique and rare find. While the restoration may have shaved some potential money off its worth, Gary tells the team that the book is worth somewhere around $20,000. Even with this information, Bob accepts the laughably low offer of $7,000. To add insult to injury, it turns out that most of the books in Newton's collection have been destroyed, making this deal especially painful. Number 2. Autographed Godfathers Screenplay. The Godfather movie is a cinematic masterpiece and has been awarded top accolades. Generations have watched the movie and hailed it as a classic. So when the screenplay for the movie, allegedly signed by Al Pacino himself, made its way into the shop, it was a real find. The guys had their handwriting expert confirm that it was, in fact, Al Pacino's signature. Rick offered the seller Diane a measly $500 because he was under the impression it would only sell for $1,000 at auction. What makes this bad deal unique is that the seller declined their offer. Diane was happy knowing that Al Pacino's signature was authentic and said she could probably get more for it at a fundraiser. Diane went to auction off the screenplay to none other than the real-life Michael Corleone, John Hancock, for $12,000. It even gets better. Once the auction concluded and the movie's producer Al Ruddy heard of the sale, he chimed in to admit that he was in fact the Al who signed the screenplay, making it worth a lot less than $12,000. Thankfully for Diane, she was smart enough not to take the Pawn Stars deal. Number 1. 1951 Yankees sign ball. seller Clint was in possession of a rare 1951 signed World Series champion New York Yankees baseball. When he came to the shop, the old man had their handwriting expert Brenda confirm the signatures by comparing them to signatures she had brought with her. When she was done confirming the authenticity, she told the seller that what he gets for the ball really depends on what a buyer is willing to pay. Yeah. Clint has originally asked for $3,000, to which the old man countered with a lowball offer of just $800. Clint wasn't about to sell this rare and authentic ball for $800, so he walked. And arrestingly, in 2017, another signed 1951 Yankee ball was seen on the show Antique Roadshow, except that ball also had Marilyn Monroe's autograph, who was dating and about to marry Yankee superstar Joe DiMaggio. That ball was appraised for $15,000. If it didn't have Marilyn Monroe's signature, it was valued at $5,000 to $7,000. Fun fact: don't look too hard at the customers in the background of any particular episode. They're not really customers. Have you ever noticed how the people in the shop seem uninterested in the cameras and the stars of the show? That's because the customers you see are actually background actors paid to be on set to make the shop look busy while filming. If they actually let people in during a shoot, you'd probably see a lot more photo bombs and people asking for autographs. Many reality shows actually use this approach when they film inside a store or a public place. They'll empty out the location and fill it with their own paid actors in order to have a smooth shoot. Which item that we mentioned would you love to add to your own personal collection? Do you think the Pawn Stars are always fair, or are they money-hungry scammers? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more videos like this one.